Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something that affects all of us, but it's often, kind of simplified, human intelligence.
Absolutely. We tend to picture it as just one number, maybe from an old school test.
Right, but what if it's way more complex, like a whole tapestry of different skills?
Exactly.
So our mission today is to really unpack intelligence. We'll look at how we even started thinking about SMART, explore different kinds of intelligence, and crucially, help you maybe start to see your own unique profile. Okay, let's get into it.
And it's really fascinating how our whole idea of what SMART means it's changed so much over time. We've gone from these really fixed ideas to something much more varied.
So let's go back a bit. Late 19th century, where did this all start? I guess we have to talk about Francis Galton.
Definitely. Galton, often called the father of individual differences. His approach was very direct, almost physical.
Physical, like measuring things.
Yeah, literally things like reaction time. He thought quicker reflexes meant higher intelligence, but he also gave us this idea of intelligence A versus intelligence B.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Intelligence A is like your raw, inherent potential, what you could be capable of. Intelligence B is how that actually shows up in your life, what you do.
Potential versus performance. Got it.
Precisely. And then, moving into the early 1900s, you get Alfred Binet, but with a totally different goal.
He's the father of IQ testing, right?
Often called that, yeah. But he wasn't measuring reaction times. The French government basically asked him to find kids who needed extra help in school.
So practical application.
Very practical.
Yeah.
In 1905, with Theodore Simon, he made the Binet-Simon scale. This was a big shift. It used cognitive tasks, not just sensory ones.
Like what kind of tasks?
Around 30 short things related to everyday life, following instructions, naming body parts, counting coins. The key was they got harder with age, and he used the average kid's performance at each age as the standard.
And that's the foundation for the IQ score itself.
Well, the term IQ actually came a bit later. 1916, Louis Terman at Stanford adapted Binet's test for American kids. He used Wilhelm Stern's formula from 1912.
Mental age divided by chronological age times 100.
That's the one. The Stanford Binet and the IQ score became huge, but like you hinted, it worked well for kids.
But maybe not so much for adults. That mental age thing gets tricky.
Exactly. Then comes World War I and a massive scaling up problem. Robert Yerkes, an Army psychologist, needed to assess millions of recruits fast.
Individual tests wouldn't work for that scale.
No way. So he developed group tests.
Yeah.
The Army Alpha and the Army Beta.
Beta, what was that for?
That was clever. It was nonverbal for recruits who didn't speak English or couldn't read. Instructions were given just by demonstration.
Wow. Did it work well?
It was a huge effort, but its actual impact on the war effort is debated, and later on, people definitely questioned the validity, especially the beta test.
Okay, so we have individual tests, group tests, but was anyone looking for like a common thread, something underlying all these different abilities?
Now you're getting to Charles Spearman in the 1920s, and his idea of the G factor general ability.
G, right. What was his big idea?
He noticed something interesting. People who did well on one kind of intelligence test, say vocabulary,
tended to do well on others too, like math.
Exactly. Math, spatial reasoning, you name it. He figured there must be some underlying mental energy or core ability driving performance across the board.
And he called that G. What did he define it as?
Basically, the ability to deal with cognitive complexity. And what's really remarkable is how enduring G has been. It consistently predicts things like school success, job performance.
Even other life outcomes. That's significant.
It is. Though it's also fair to mention, Spearman's work wasn't without its controversies. He had some views tied to eugenics and restricting voting based on G, which were, part of that era's thinking.
Right. Important historical context. So beyond Spearman, where did testing go?
A major step forward came with David Wessler, starting in 1939. His scales, like the WAIS for adults and WISC for children, are still widely used. He included both verbal and nonverbal tasks.
And he standardized the scores, right?
Yes. Crucially, he set the average IQ at 100 with a standard deviation. That's the system we pretty much use today.
So for a long time, this idea of G, the single general intelligence, was kind of the main story.
It really dominated, yeah. But not everyone was convinced it was the whole story.
Right. So where did the challenges come from? People started thinking there might be more to it than just G.
Exactly. There was a pushback against this single factor idea. One of the first big voices was L.L. Thurstone back in the 1930s. He really questioned the overwhelming importance of G.
Okay, so if it wasn't just G, what did Thurstone propose instead?
He argued for multiple distinct abilities. He called them primary mental abilities.
Primary mental abilities. Like,
Yeah. He identified 7. Verbal comprehension, word fluency, how quickly you can produce words.
Yeah.
Number ability, spatial reasoning, associative memory, perceptual speed, how quickly you see details and reasoning. He thought these were the building blocks.
So a profile of strengths rather than one score.
Pretty much.
Sure.
And then later in the 60s, Raymond Cattell built on this, splitting G into 2 major types, fluid and crystallized intelligence.
Fluid and crystallized, how do those work?
Fluid intelligence is your ability to reason and solve new problems independent of existing knowledge. Think raw processing power. It tends to peak earlier and maybe decline slowly with age. Mathematicians solving novel proofs often use a lot of fluid intelligence.
Okay, and crystallized.
That's your accumulated knowledge, your facts, skills, vocabulary, everything you've learned over time. Historians with deep knowledge or poets with mastery of language that relies heavily on crystallized intelligence, and this type generally increases with age.
That makes sense. You learn more as you go. Which brings us to a really key framework for today, especially if you're trying to figure out your own strengths. Robert Sternberg's triarchic theory.
Yes, Sternberg theory is really useful because it tries to bring different ideas together. He proposed 3 main types of intelligence.
3 types. Okay, what are they?
First, there's analytical intelligence, sometimes called competential. This is basically your book smarts. It's what traditional IQ tests usually measure, analyzing problems, evaluating options, judging, comparing. It's very academic.
So like solving puzzles, analogies, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It involves the mechanics of thinking, planning, monitoring your understanding, executing steps, and learning new information efficiently.
Okay, that's analytical. What's number 2?
Number 2 is creative intelligence, also called experiential. This is about insight, synthesis, reacting to new situations, coming up with novel ideas. It's your ability to think outside the box, essentially.
Dealing with novelty, being original.
Right. And it also includes how quickly you can make a new skill automatic. Like learning to drive. At first it takes all your focus, but eventually it becomes second nature. That transition involves creative intelligence.
Interesting. And the third one. This feels like the one people might connect with everyday life more.
That's practical intelligence or contextual intelligence. And yes, this is your street smarts. It's about adapting to, shaping, and selecting real-world environments. It's applying knowledge effectively in everyday situations.
So less about theory, more about doing.
Very much so. People high in practical intelligence often learn best by doing. They like to implement ideas, use tools, apply what they know to get things done in the real world.
Okay, this is where it gets really helpful for people listening. How would you know if you have high practical intelligence? What are some concrete examples from the sources?
Well, think about situations where you just seem to thrive. Are you good at, say, public relations? Shaping how people see things. That takes practical intelligence.
Yeah, reading the room, understanding influence.
Or conflict resolution. Are you good at seeing different sides, mediating disputes? Like a skilled negotiator who understands not just the law, but the people involved, the context.
Okay, what else?
Think about emergencies. Are you someone who stays calm, reacts decisively, knows instinctively whether to act or get out? That's practical intelligence in action.
Adapting on the fly.
Exactly. Or job interviews. Someone practically intelligent doesn't just answer questions. They figure out what the interviewer really wants and shapes their answers accordingly.
It's strategic thinking in a social context.
Right. Or think about customer service balancing rules with keeping a customer happy, diffusing tricky situations, project management, adapting plans constantly. Even things like gamesmanship, knowing how to bend the rules without breaking them to get an edge.
Or someone who immigrates and just figures out how to survive and succeed in a totally new environment.
A classic example. Or a good coach analyzing opponents, making split-second decisions during a game, adapting strategy. It's all about applying knowledge effectively in messy, real-world situations.
That's a really useful set of examples. Now let's shift gears to another huge theory in this area, one that really blew the doors open on different types of intelligence. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences.
Ah, yes, Gardner. He fundamentally challenged the idea of a single G factor, or even just 3 types like Sternberg. He argued for multiple relatively independent intelligences.
And he had specific criteria for what counts as an intelligence, right?
Oh.
It wasn't just anything.
Correct. He was quite rigorous. He looked for things like, could this ability be isolated by brain damage? Someone loses language but keeps musical ability.
Okay, neuropsychological evidence. What else?
The existence of prodigies or savants, people with exceptional talent in one area but maybe average in others. A distinct developmental path does the ability develop in a typical way. Experimental evidence could you show tasks related to this intelligence operate separately. And some psychometric support, though that was less central for him than for others.
And based on that, how many intelligences did he identify? Our sources mentioned 9.
9, yes. And as we go through them, again, think about yourself. Don't worry about fitting perfectly. Just see if any of these really resonate.
Okay, let's start. Number 1, logical mathematical intelligence.
This is probably closest to traditional ideas of SMART. Good with numbers, logic, patterns, abstract reasoning, scientific thinking, strategy games.
Careers like mathematician, scientist, computer analyst.
Spot on.
Number 2, linguistic intelligence.
Sensitivity to language, spoken and written. Good vocabulary, enjoys reading, writing, telling stories, learning languages easily.
Careers like writers, journalists, lawyers, public speakers.
Exactly.
Okay, 3 and 4 are related but different. Interpersonal and intrapersonal. Let's do interpersonal first.
Interpersonal is about understanding other people. Good at reading moods, intentions, motivations. Works well in teams, good communication skills, empathetic. Lots of friends, maybe.
So teachers, counselors, managers, salespeople, HR folks.
Basic example.
And intrapersonal.
That's self-knowledge. Understanding your own feelings, goals, strengths, weaknesses. Often self-motivated, strong-willed, enjoys reflection, maybe prefers working alone.
Like psychologists, writers, philosophers, entrepreneurs, perhaps?
Yes, people who need deep self-understanding.
Number 5, musical intelligence.
Sensitivity to pitch, rhythm, timbre, tone. Ability to recognize, create, reproduce, reflect on music. Often sensitive to environmental sounds, too.
Musicians, composers, conductors, music therapists. Pretty clear.
Yep.
6, visual spatial intelligence.
Thinking in pictures and images. Good spatial reasoning, navigating, reading maps, visualizing objects from different angles. Enjoys puzzles, drawing, designing.
Architects, artists, engineers, pilots, sculptors.
Absolutely. High awareness of the physical world around them.
7, bodily kinesthetic intelligence.
Using your body skillfully. Good coordination, dexterity, balance. Expressing ideas through movement.
Yeah.
Good hands-on skills.
Dancers, athletes, surgeons, actors, craftspeople, mechanics.
Exactly. Mind-body connection is key here.
8, naturalist intelligence.
Understanding the natural world. Recognizing patterns in nature. Classifying plants and animals. Sensitivity to environmental issues. Loves being outdoors.
Botanists, biologists, farmers, conservationists, landscape architects.
That's the one. Connecting with living things.
And finally, number 9, which sounds a bit different. Existential intelligence.
This one is about grappling with the big questions. The meaning of life, why we die, the human condition, sensitivity to deep, ultimate issues.
So philosophers, theologians, maybe some writers or inspirational speakers.
Potentially, yes. It's about that deeper questioning capacity.
Okay, wow. That's a much broader view than just IQ. But let's unpack this. Beyond academic or even Gardner's list, there are 2 others often talked about, especially for success in life and leadership: emotional and social intelligence.
Yes. EQ and CQ.
Yeah.
They're incredibly important and sometimes get tangled up. Let's clarify. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is really about your inner world and reading others' immediate feelings.
So knowing your own emotions, managing them, and recognizing emotions in others.
Precisely. It involves emotional awareness, just noticing feelings. Using emotions to help you think, like knowing when you're too upset to make a good decision. And managing emotions, calming yourself down, cheering others up, it's very present-focused.
And you mentioned VCs look for this in founders.
They do. Because startups are emotional roller coasters. You need that ability to handle pressure and work with people effectively under stress.
Okay, so that's EQ. How does social intelligence, ESQ, differ?
ESQ is more about navigating the social world effectively over time. It develops through experience, learning from social interactions, successes, failures. It's your tact, your common sense in social situations.
So less about immediate feelings, more about the bigger social picture.
Right. People high in ESQ are often socially expressive, but they can also adapt their behavior to fit different situations. They're usually great listeners, good at figuring out what makes people tick.
They can handle different types of people.
Exactly. They feel comfortable with a wide range of personalities and are skilled at managing the impression they make, hopefully while staying authentic. SQ is more future-oriented, thinking about how interactions play out, how to build relationships, how to navigate group dynamics for a good outcome.
That present versus future distinction is really helpful. EQ for the immediate feeling, SQ for the longer social game.
You got it. And when you combine them, EQ and SQ, you get ESI, emotional and social intelligence.
ESI, and that's key for leadership.
Hugely important. Research suggests that ESI competencies, things like self-awareness, empathy, influence, conflict management, are often what separate average leaders from truly great ones. More so even than IQ or technical skills alone.
Wow. And the really crucial part.
Unlike IQ, which tends to be relatively stable, ESI skills can be learned and developed. That's incredibly empowering. You can actively work on improving your emotional and social intelligence throughout your life.
That's a hopeful note. But okay, we've laid out all these different intelligences, Sternberg, Gardner, EQ, SQ. It sounds great, but this raises an important question, doesn't it? Are these theories universally accepted?
No, not at all. While they're really appealing and offer these broader views, they face significant criticism from many researchers, especially within psychometrics and neuroscience.
Criticism? Like what? Some people even call Gardner's theory a neuromyth, right?
That's a term you hear, yes. The core criticisms often boil down to a few key things. First, a lack of strong, repeatable scientific evidence.
Meaning the experiments don't consistently back up the idea of truly separate intelligences.
Right. Factor analysis studies, for instance, often find that these supposedly distinct intelligences still correlate with each other, and often correlate strongly with that old G factor, suggesting they aren't as independent as the theories propose.
So G might still be lurking underneath.
That's what many researchers argue. Also, modern neuroscience doesn't really support the idea of neat, separate modules in the brain for each intelligence.
The brain is more interconnected.
Exactly. Complex functions like language or spatial reasoning involve widespread networks across the brain, not just one isolated spot. Gardner himself has even called the intelligences useful fictions.
Useful fictions? That's quite a statement. Is there also debate about whether these things are even intelligences?
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Critics argue that some of what Gardner calls intelligences, maybe musical ability or bodily kinesthetic skills, are better described as talents, abilities, or perhaps even personality dimensions, rather than cognitive intelligence in the same way we think about logical reasoning.
And what about the link to learning styles? People often connect Gardner's ideas to that.
Gardner himself actually pushes back against that. He stresses that his intelligences are cognitive abilities, not learning preferences like being a visual or auditory learner, which is what learning styles usually refer to.
So even if schools use MI-inspired teaching, the positive results might not be because the theory itself is perfectly accurate.
That's the argument. Positive outcomes might come from other good teaching practices that often accompany MI approaches, like giving students more attention, varying activities, repeating concepts, or just the teacher being more enthusiastic. Not necessarily proof of the distinct intelligences themselves.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you listening right now? We've gone from that single IQ score idea to this incredibly rich, complex picture. Sternberg, Gardner, EQ, SECU. It's clear intelligence isn't just one thing.
Absolutely. It's far more diverse and, frankly, more interesting than a single number could ever capture. Maybe the real point isn't figuring out exactly which label fits you best.
But more about
Understanding the unique blend of abilities you possess. How do you solve problems? How do you interact with the world? How do you learn and create? Perhaps the true measure isn't the type, but how effectively you use your personal mix to navigate your life and, maybe, shape your corner of the world.
So the invitation is really to reflect. Think about those moments where you feel capable, engaged in your element. Are you analyzing, creating, doing, connecting with others, understanding yourself, interacting with nature? Recognizing that unique profile is the first step. Leveraging it is the journey.